All right. Welcome everyone to the January 18th, 2022 Curriculum Subcommittee meeting of the Brookline School Committee. This meeting is being recorded for those who would like to view it later and will be available on BIG. So welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. We've a really exciting agenda. I'm really excited to hear about our new courses and updates to our courses. The first piece of business is approval of the December 21st, 2021 Curriculum Subcommittee meeting minutes. I hope everyone has had a chance to review them. I know that I have. And I'm happy to make a motion to accept them if anyone is willing to second that. Stephen is willing to second. Great. We'll take vote. Susan?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, which allows us to move on to the exciting part of our meeting. The second item is the course approvals for the high school. So I see that Leslie Ryan Miller is here. And I saw Gabe McCormick as well from our central office. And then I see we've also been joined by Hal Mason, Michelle Herman. I see Ed Weiser is holding on the line and Donna Sartanowitz. I hope I'm saying that up close. I apologize if I did not. So we're going to start with Leslie. Where would you like to start with the two courses? And I'm not sure who the main presenters will be from the math department. And then we also have the art department as well, the visual arts department presenting.
Yep. Why don't we start with Donna since she's here? I see Josh is logging on now to give him a couple minutes to little while to get settled. Is that okay with you?
I think that's fine.
If you don't mind me interrupting, I'm going to shut my camera off for a minute and go someplace where I have better Wi-Fi. Sorry, you keep freezing.
No problem.
Yeah. So we had math listed first on the agenda. So I think Josh looks ready to go. So why don't we just jump in with math and Donna can join us when Wi-Fi gets sorted out.
That's great. Welcome, Josh. I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. If you could introduce yourselves to the community at large so they know who you are and tell us about the course. Welcome.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. My name is Josh Paris. I am the math department coordinator at Brookline High School. And I'm here to talk about a course proposal that we're calling Data Science and Social Justice. So I'm going to share my screen. That's okay. And run through this proposal that we have. So here we go. Yeah, so this course is called Data Science and Social Justice. And we made this presentation to the Innovation Fund last week and are hoping to get some financial support to do some, some preparation for this course. However, even if we don't get that funding, we still would like to run this course next year and we'll be able to do that. I've been working with a number of people in the math department on this proposal, not just myself. We began last summer. Actually, we had a workshop that was sponsored by or funded by the town, where we're looking at both social justice and data science. And after doing a few days work, decided that there was a course there that we wanted to combine those two. So Danielle Thyssen and Rabina are two math teachers in the high school that have done this work. Chris Monschauer is a very important part of the team. He is a co-teacher, our math co-teacher in the special ed department. And also we've done some work with Julie James, who's the ACE math teacher, who has done some of the work in some of her ACE courses. Quickly, what is data science? Well, it's really, the process of gathering data and cleaning that data, which is often a very complex process, and then modeling it and figuring out what the best model is to fit that data and trying to come to an understanding of that. And although this image here looks linear, it's really a much more iterative and circular process in which you're constantly reevaluating your models based on new information and trying to make them better. Here's a proposed sort of sequence of units here. And these are based on a course for a data science course for high school students that was made out in California by an organization called ucubed.org. And Joe Bowler, who is a renowned mathematics educator at the collegiate level at Stanford, has had a big part in creating this course for high school. And they've done it in a way in which high schools can take the basis of their course and then modify it to fit their needs. So if you look at these units here, of note, I would say, is the last unit there, which is a culminating project, because really we want this course to be student-centered. Students are going to be doing projects in each of these units, and we can and plan on adapting those projects to make them all about various social justice issues. And then at the end of the course, the students will take everything they've learned and develop and carry out their own project. So project-based learning, very student-focused, a lot of group work. And as I'm going to talk about later, we envision this course being very connected to the community. So why data science? Our world is data-driven these days. There are very big questions that we need to answer as a human population. And the way to make those decisions is to gather data and analyze that data. And really, I would say, in my view, it is our job at Brookline High School to make sure that all of our students are, have a sense of what data science is and how data can be manipulated by those presenting it, so that they can be educated consumers of data, because data is just thrown at us all the time. So I think that's why data science. In this course also, there's going to be a computer science component. So students are going to use these tools listed here: Google Sheets, Python, R, RStudio. And this is important for a couple of reasons. One, over the last 5 or 6 years, I've worked with Britt Stevens in career and tech ed and Ed Weiser in science to develop a computer science, a number of computer science pathways. We started a SNAP and Python computer programming. We've started some robotics, leading towards AP computer science. But I felt for many years that there needs to be another course in that sequence, a course that would be really interesting to students who might not necessarily want to take AP computer science. And I think this fits really nicely in here. We can design this course so that students who have no coding experience at all, we will teach them what they need. And at the same time, because it's very project-based, students who have some computer science, some coding experience can take these projects kind of to a higher level based on their skill set. Another reason why I think this is really important is that computer science is a very popular major at the collegiate level right now. And because of that, a lot of colleges still have these weed out courses where they have a pretty intense intro to computer science course. Unfortunately, one of whose goal is to sort of make it challenging and weed out the students that they don't think will be able to be successful in that field. And so I think it's our responsibility to prepare students for that course. And so students who don't have any computer science experience and before going into college, I think are really at a very big disadvantage, which is one of the reasons why I've been a big proponent of increasing the number of students that take computer science, that are exposed to coding in the high school. Why social justice? Well, let me start by reading this quotation from Rethinking Schools here. When math is embedded in important issues from racial disparities in school expulsions to the rate of global warming, every child has a contribution to make and a stake in the answers. I've been math department coordinator now for 13 years. And I like to think that we've made a lot of progress, that we've grown a lot in my tenure here. One area that I think we still fall short in is doing contextualized mathematics. I think too much of our math is still abstract, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's an area that I've been thinking about a lot. And I think this course really gets at what students want out of mathematics, which is to use it to make sense of their own world. It fits with the goals of the district that are shown here. So combining social justice and data science, to me, is just a natural fit. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Continuing why social justice. So at the high school, we have social justice type courses in a variety of disciplines, as you can see, in social studies, science and social studies, science, world language, English, and ACE. They all have social justice core type courses, and what's missing is a mathematics one. And so I think this really can enhance all of the students' experience with social justice at the high school. Imagine if you were that students could, in a sense, minor in social justice by taking a variety of courses in any number of disciplines, all looking at social justice through different lenses. Some teachers have begun to incorporate social justice units in their courses. And when we've done so, students have shown just a tremendous amount of interest, and they really appreciate it. So here are a few quotations from those students as we slide in here. So I'll just let these slide in and you all can read them. As much as I would like to believe that every student loves to study mathematics for the pure joy of it, as I have, I don't think all students are like that. And in order to engage some students in the study of mathematics, we need to make it feel relevant to them. And doing so through the lens of social justice, I believe, is that way. So who is this course for? This course is for all Brookline High School students, regardless of their mathematical experiences. It is an unleveled course, and it is co-taught ready. What I mean by that is we have a series of math courses at the high school, grades 9 through 11, really, in which that are taught by a math teacher and a special ed teacher. And it's for students, it's for mainstream students and also special ed students. And we will create this course to be accessible to all of these students. It can be, so I think we're going to get students with wide range of mathematical experiences. It can be kind of one of our senior options for students who have gone through our college prep sequence, starting in 9th grade with geometry, and then algebra 2, and then a course called trigonometry and analysis, which is like a pre-calculus course in grade 11, because I really want all of our students to get to pre-calculus. And then often they take a calculus or statistics course in senior year. And this could be another option for students in that level. By the way, while I'm thinking of it, Brookline High School has a 3-year graduation requirement for mathematics. Most of our students take 4 years of mathematics, primarily because in order to go to a state school in Massachusetts, you need 4 years of mathematics. We have been talking perhaps about going to a 4-year math requirement. And as we ponder that, we're going to need more courses for seniors. And so this sort of fits that need. At the same time, I can see students who are in our honors or advanced level pathway and, dig data science. And so they may be taking an AP calculus or AP statistics course, and then they could take this in addition to that. So they could double up, this would be their second math course. Or, like I said, students who, want to study that pure mathematics, want to take an AP math course in 12th grade, and also are very interested in social justice and want to pursue that interest, and this would be another place for them to do that. So why should we run this course? Here's a little slide of Brookline High School's mission statement, and I want to zoom in on this image here. So what do we want for our students? We want dynamic, collaborative, equitable. We want them engaged with the community, and we want them contributing to the world. And this course does all of that. It is dynamic. Students will be active participants in the class, gathering, analyzing, evaluating data. They will be collaborative. They're going to be working together on projects. They're going to be working in class every day. Equity is inherent to this course because of what I said earlier, in that it is unleveled and can attract and can be accessible to all students, but also in the subject matter that it studies, social justice. The projects that students are going to be completing are related to the community in a wide variety of ways. I'm talking about the Brookline High School community, the Brookline town community, Massachusetts, the country, the planet. Those are all various communities, and students will be able to elect to a certain extent which community they want to be involved in as they sort of decide what type of data they want to collect and what social justice issue they want to pursue. And contributing to the world is what I just talked about. So I think this course does all of this. Yeah, so that's my presentation. By the way, also I've shared with you a document that I created, which is a proposed course description for this course. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. That was really informative. Well, I see you looking at your watch. Well done.
I was worried about how long it was going to take. So
that's wonderful. I love the pieces of project-based learning and college and career readiness skills, student voice and choice, and there's some components of universal design for learning in there as well, which really supports equity in a number of from its very framework. And I like the civic engagement piece of it as well. It's really, really exciting. And I am a big fan of Jo Boaler's and her work out of Stanford, and UCubed is really, really great work. Is the plan to take some of that UCubed work and build on it and adjust it, or will you use the curriculum as it is there? I sort of clicked through to the website to kind of look at it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, our thoughts are to use that as a starting point and then tailor it to make it our own. I've been teaching here for over 20 years now, and we never take anything, sort of that's prepackaged and just deliver it, without thinking a lot about it and deciding we know better, for good or for bad. But we do want to use, it's a great place to start and has a ton of resources. And as you're creating a new course, you need to build up those resources, which is a tremendous amount of work. So we want to use what's there and then take it and see how it fits with the student population who's going to be taking the course.
And then that's great. And I had two other small questions, and I want to open it up to others as well. Will students choose their own topics, or will it be more like small groups, or is it individualized? I don't know, I'm just curious about that piece. And then the other part is, for folks who may not be familiar, can you maybe just do like a very short description of what complex instruction is so that other folks might be able to understand that better?
Sure. Yeah. So for each of the units of study has sort of like a case study that they use. And we are going to modify, those aren't all about social justice, but that's a big place where we're going to modify those and make each case study for each unit about a social justice issue. So those the teachers will create. Then the last project, the culminating project, is the one that the students get to choose. Whether they do that individually or in groups, we haven't figured out yet. So it may be, you know, there are a lot of advantages for students to get together and, you know, figure out an issue that's, you know, relevant to them. You know, there's also validity in students, you know, getting to choose their own and doing individual work. Maybe it'll be a combination of those. Complex instruction is a way to make sure that all students have kind of social standing in the class. You know, it's a belief that all students have something to bring to a group, and that no one has everything that is needed to work effectively in a group, which therefore requires people to be working together, bringing their own skills so that, you know, so that everything that's needed is there. So it's an idea that we do a lot in the math department, where we put students often working in groups. And really, we've done a lot of work in complex instruction over the last half dozen years, because whereas we've had students working in groups for a long time, just putting 4 or 5 students together and say, work together, without giving them any sort of strategies for how to do that or any sort of reasons for doing that, isn't super effective. And so complex instruction really involves showing students that each one of them has something to bring to the group, and then showing them how, giving them clear instructions and clear strategies for how to work effectively.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Helen, I see you have your hand up, and then Stephen.
Hi, Helen.
First of all, Josh, hi, and thank you so much for this course. I mean, it's really exciting. It's what the school committee has been asking for in terms of project-based learning and making it relevant to students. It's fantastic. I have a few technical questions and cost questions. So the first technical one, I see it's offered for a half a semester or a full semester. Will they be different courses?
So that's something we need to work through. We would like that. I think there are a lot of advantages to students being able to take this for one semester. I think we can entice more students to do so. It also adds a layer of complexity to it. So no, it won't be different sections. It will be, and we have to work this out and see if this makes sense even to do this. It is a full year course. We think students can take the first half of the year and get a half credit and then not finish the course. We may explore the idea of students being able to not do the first half of the course and enter for the second semester. I'm a lot more skeptical than that can work, because, you know, things that they need to learn in the first semester, we build on. But no, it's not a separate course. The students, let's say we had 25 students in a class, and 5 of them they're all in the same class, and let's say 5 of them are only, you know, signed up for the first semester, and the rest are there for the whole year. That has scheduling implications, that has staffing implications. So it's something I'd left there for now, as I need to work through with Hal and with Anthony, and see if that makes sense to do it that way.
But you do plan on having 2 teachers for 25 students, is that correct? Is that?
I think that depends on what we get from the Innovation Fund.
Great.
So that's what we've asked for. We've asked for staffing so that we can have 2 teachers. If we get that, that's great. If we don't, again, it's going to come down to sectioning. You know, I have some very large classes now, and so if we don't get additional finances from you know, I think outside of the district resources, I don't think we can have 2 teachers and 25 kids. I think it'll just be 1 teacher. We will have, I'd like to have the second I'd like to have 1 section anyways, at least be co-taught. And so we would have, the second teacher would be a special educator, but that can be fit into the high school budget, you know, because we have special educators budgeted into the math department already.
Okay, well, that makes sense. The other question I have is, I know we have, or either we have, or we used to have a statistics course. Do we still?
We
And
still
is
have a
that full-
statistics course, yes. And there is, we've talked about, as we started this course, we're like, well, wait, we have statistics.
Yeah.
Why don't we just change the statistics course? I'm not the best person to answer this question. Danielle Thyssen, one of our teachers who's on this grant, teaches statistics and AP statistics, has a really good answer of why this is different than that course. And I'm not sure I can duplicate it, but statistics and data science overlap, but are different. The statistics course that we have is of inferential statistics. It talks a lot about, it does talk about modeling, but it also talks about, sampling distributions and normal distributions and a lot of other things like that. Whereas data science is purely about, the gathering, cleaning, and analyzing of data. The other big difference is the coding piece that we're going to put in. And so we see that as a big, as differentiating from the statistics course. Now, that may change. Like that's our thought right now. And I want to have more offerings for seniors. And so I'm not ready at this point to say, oh, let's just replace the statistics course, because I want to have different options for seniors to meet the needs and interests of a wider variety of students. Somewhere down the road, we might say, you know what, we're not seeing that, then let's collapse this into maybe just a data science course. But we're not, like, we need this course, or would like this course to run for a number of years to get a sense of what the students want and what we can do in this course before saying that we're just going to replace our statistics course.
My sense is the kids will start voting with their feet.
Right.
This is obviously a more interesting course than statistics. That can be very dry unless you're a math major and that's your goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those were my questions. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Stephen.
Nice to see you. That was just very short question. First, I just want to say, I think this is really exciting. I would have thought that a data literacy course itself would have been ambitious, but data science, where you're really helping students think about how to identify patterns and draw insights from data, that seems really ambitious and exciting. I was really interested in your presentation about how you've thought through how to make this appealing to students, both pedagogically and in terms of how to frame the subject. I'm curious, I only have elementary aged kids myself. I am not as familiar with what the mindset of a high school student. Have you spoken with BHS students currently about a course like this, and have they given you any specific insights that you've used to frame how to present this course?
I showed those 3 quotations, there in that slide, and that's just a few of many that we've had. So part of the work we did last summer in terms of social justice is we created a spreadsheet that has social justice related activities matched with the courses that they would fit, whose curriculum is matched. And we've shared that with the math department. We've created sort of curriculum. We've created social justice liaisons for each of our course. And these teachers are responsible for keeping those conversations alive, really, as the curriculum, as the day-to-day lessons are being planned. So a number of teachers this year have incorporated social justice lessons into the curriculum of their courses, and the feedback we get from students is really positive. COVID is happening, and there's data, right? There's data everywhere about that, and making sense of that has been, of great interest to students, among other issues. So our sense is that, students are really thirsting for a math course that is relevant to them, and yeah, so yeah, I think we're going to have that interest. You know, students, seniors' schedules are complex. Students want to do a lot of things, and so you know, we'll have to see how many of them, you know, like Helen said, you know, choose by walking into this course. But I'm excited and I'm optimistic that we're going to get a good amount of students that choose to do this.
Well, I just think it's so relevant to our world. I'm excited that you're proposing it.
Thanks.
Susan?
Good. Hi, Josh. Thank you for this. This is terrific. I'll try not to repeat things that Helen and Stephen have said, and Jennifer, but just agree that it's so important to draw students from a more diverse audience, and topical things are so important to that. And I just want to underscore the real of this weeding out effect that you mentioned of kids through computer science courses. It's just a very real effect. It disproportionately affects students of color. It disproportionately affects women, white women, all women. It really is a problem. And so I think that this is a really great opportunity to change that. Couple questions, one of which is similar to Stephen's. I was much more excited by your voiceover than by the one pager. When I read the one pager, it felt very mathy. There were words like clean data and Python and R, and like there are scary words on there. If this is somebody who's not somebody who's not embedded in it. So I'm wondering if there's any way that, some of the examples are probably the most powerful recruiting tools that you have, because if you ask, students, do you want to learn how to clean data? You might get one group of kids, but if you say, are you interested in, analyzing, sentencing disparities for crack versus cocaine for Black and white people, like you're going to get a different group of people potentially, or, suicide rates by different kinds of demographics, LGBTQ versus not, or wage gaps, by demographics, by women, by, so I just think that maybe some of the examples might be more powerful. And I don't know if any of those are going to be what you're doing, but something like that would really grab a student and say, that's a problem I want to solve. I would just wonder if there's a way to, for the educators to give examples, or for some of the students who are in the group that you would be hoping to draw from, could help with the pitch, just so that it doesn't sound like a scary math thing. It sounds like, oh yeah, okay, that could be for me. So that would be one thought, and you may have thought of that already. The only other thought I have, because this is just such an important issue, is, we are always trying to get students at younger grades to be able to, again, all girls, all children of color, all, who are not necessarily in this, already in, well represented. But I think, I'm wondering if there are ways, because again, if depending on the problems that these students are solving, I'm wondering if there are ways to even bring this into the middle school level, and show kind of the power of this work. Because I think they would learn a lot from the high school students. So anyway, just a few ideas that struck me, but this is just really, really exciting. And I love the idea that it can be, so many different ways to think about social justice, beyond just demographics, but climate and some of the other things you mentioned as well. So just very exciting.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not, I read a course description. I don't know who reads those. And that's, so I can jazz that up a bit, but I'm working on modifying the slide deck that I just showed you to be more appealing to students. And I'm going to use that as a recruiting tool. So I'm going to share that with our teachers of probably 11th grade students, and go to each class, and if they want, go to each class and talk it up. So I totly agree. That course description isn't going to entice a whole lot of people. So thank you for that feedback.
All right, thank you. I see Suzanne, you'd like to speak?
I just have a quick comment, which is thank you, Josh, for this and really for being, I think, on the cutting edge of math, possibly in high school and maybe middle school. I just was going to say that Boston University is building a whole new building and creating a new major on data science. So I don't know what kind of collaboration or how we might think about that, but they're very excited about the new program and hiring new faculty. And, I think it's great that we have kind of the intro to that in high school and let students think about that. And, maybe they want to do a field trip to see the place or, see what's going on at the college level, to give them some ideas. So thank you very much. I'd sign up for the course if I were at the high school.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, thanks. I didn't know that about BU. Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity to do some collaboration with them. It's a hugely quickly growing field at the collegiate level. And I'm excited to get in now and jazz our students with going into that field.
Thank you so much, Josh. I don't see any other hands, and I want to be respectful of your time and Donna's as well, and the folks to come. Does anyone have any other burning questions or feedback? All right, thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate you coming and sharing this course idea with us. This is great, and look forward to bringing it to the full committee. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next course is on art books from the Visual Arts Department. Donna, will you be presenting?
Yes.
Okay, great. Would you share with everyone your title and your role and tell us about your course?
Absolutely. And I'm glad Josh went first. I saw and I got to see how this all works. He almost made me want to take a math class, which is very unusual for me. That's not my thing. So my name is Donna Sartanowitz, and I am in the role of interim curriculum coordinator for the visual arts. So this is my first foray into doing this kind of work with you, although I've been teaching at the high school for 18 years. And it's not the first course that I've proposed at the high school. I have other experience with that. So the course that I'm proposing is called Artists' Books and Visual Journals. And the idea for this course has come out of a lot of work that I'm doing with my department this year, looking at equity and diversity in the art room. So I've been doing a lot of conversations, sort of onboarding conversations with other program leaders at the high school to kind of find out where our work intersects with these other programs. And I'm looking at the data. I should probably take Josh's course to help me to look at the data. But we've been looking at the data of enrollment or class requests versus actual enrollment in our classes, and then how students do within the class, like what kind of success are they having in our art classes. And several things have become clear. We do need to do some work on building the diversity in our classes. We want to ensure that we're teaching all students. And so we're making a variety of different moves to bring that equity and diversity about. And this is just one of those moves. So this course is, we're proposing a new course for this because it's going to be fundamentally different in terms of the way that we structure the course. And one of the things that we are going to be explicit about in this course is the embedded learning, the SEL benefits of learning in the art room. This is something that, especially after the pandemic, it's become very clear that a lot of our students need this kind of support to build social and emotional skills, to be more resilient in and give them a time to think about and integrate their own experiences and their own thoughts and feelings into the work that they do in high school. So, you know, I don't know what you'll say about my course description, if anybody's going to want to take the course based on my course description. But one of the other moves that we're making is that we're developing websites for each of our courses in the electives areas, so that, you know, we're a visual medium, so that kids can see this is what you will do in this class. And so I'm going to share my screen with you right now. That's what I'm going to share with you is the, hopefully it's still here. Okay, so this is what the course would look like. We're going to generate some QR codes so that students can kind of click on the QR code in the handbook, and they'll be taken right to this site. There's a course description, and then there'll be samples. And just in case you don't know what a visual journal is, all of these samples that you're going to see on this website, these are mostly visual journals from prior students that I've had, because I have a lot of my students keep visual journals. So it's a visual journal is a place where you can practice, you can collect images, you can think about things, you can experiment with your ideas, and it's a very open way to work. I think the difference between a visual journal and an artist's book is that in an artist's book, they are more thematic. They are artworks in and of themselves, and they would be based around a single idea. I don't have as many samples of that because it's not something that I've taught before. This is just a past student's journal that she kept for the year that she was in my advanced class. So, and I don't know if I can scroll down. Sorry, I'm just trying to make this continue on down. So there are more samples on the website of artists' books here. Oh my goodness, this isn't exactly what I thought it was, but okay. Sorry, one moment while I stop sharing. Okay, there, I don't want to struggle with that anymore. So as you saw from the mission statement and the need that we have identified is that there are a lot of students who are in some of our special sheltered programs that have a great deal of social anxiety. It makes it difficult for them to come to a big art class. It makes it difficult for them to present work to the whole group. So this is sort of fundamentally part of what our art classes are like. We do a lot of group work. We do a lot of collaborative work. We do a lot of presentation. This course is focusing on artists' books because it's a smaller, more contained, more intimate way of working with visual ideas. It can be much more, it can feel safer for students to really express their thoughts and take a risk when they know that they can control access to that, that visual. This population of students also has a great deal of interrupted learning. So their program leaders have said that what they need is for the student to be able to come in and work, and then they might be out for a period and then come back, and to have some mechanism for continuing learning when the education is interrupted. And so books are actually a perfect vehicle for doing that because it is portable work. It can be done anywhere. So they can take it with them, and it's sort of like a little bit of a portable studio there. Let's see, Josh talked way longer than I have to say what I wanted to say. But anyway, so I don't know what else I can tell you about it. I think I did give you a sort of a sample syllabus. This is really the beginning thoughts about what we would be teaching in the course. And I've set it to be a half-year course, mostly because most of our classes in the visual arts are half-year classes. I don't think that I will have a hard time filling the course. The program leaders that I have spoken to, we have some, partnerships. This is something that we really see a need for at the high school. Yeah, that's it. So you know what? I'd love to hear what you think.
Thank you, Donna, so much. This sounds a lot like a great opportunity to fill a need that students have. So it sounds really fantastic that it really meets students' needs. It's in that way, it's very student-centered. And I was writing down, you had said like the SEL benefits of learning in the art room. And I think that the value of art and its intersection with social emotional learning and growth is so valuable for our students and for adults. So I just think it's a fantastic idea. And I love that it's portable so students can come in and out. It really is really working, in my opinion, to meet their needs. So I think it's really exciting. Do other committee members have questions or comments? I see Helen.
So thank you, Donna, for this course. It looks very interesting, actually. Although for me, it would be overwhelming just to think about making an artistic book. But I guess to me, this reminds me of the course that, I'm going to block on his name, the dance teacher,
Christian Polis, yeah.
Polis did for, I think he did it for Winthrop House and for ACE, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it kind of builds on that work in that Christian has since retired, so he's no longer doing the course, but the need is still there. And what I was hoping by bringing it in, instead of doing it in the model that Christian did, where he brought the course to the students, a lot of the program leaders here identified their students as being particularly artistic and wanting to pursue the art as a career or as something that they would do beyond high school. But the social anxiety piece was so hard for them to get in the building and to feel comfortable once they got I'm sure many of you have been to our classrooms here at the high school. In the art department, our classrooms are huge, and they're full of students and people are moving around. There's a lot of action going on, and that's intimidating for some people. So I was hoping that this course, we could teach it in a smaller space, and that it would have a smaller number of students, but that it could be a kind of a bridge class where you can make your way out of this special sheltered program that you're in, and you can dip your toe in the water here, because this would be a foundational class. It would be unleveled, open to students of all grade levels and all experience levels.
It would also be one of the requirements that you have to do too, right? It would cover one of.
Oh, yeah. It would absolutely cover one of your, a 0.5 of your elective graduation requirement. And hopefully what in that more contained space, they could start to feel a connection to this building and to the work that we do here, and start to feel a level of trust with the creative community that we have, because I think that this is the work that they need to do, and it is the work that would support them. They just have to, maybe have a little bit of a softer entry into working in this way.
Are you thinking of using the Innovation Fund to support some of this?
I wasn't thinking of using the Innovation Fund actually, because if we run this course, I don't think we need more than one teacher. And I think the only additional funding that we would need is just in terms of supplies, and I can cover that in my budget.
But
So
usually we try and run courses with 15 or more, or 16.
Right.
So
Well,
that's the difference.
The ask is for 12 because it's a semi therapeutic environment. That would be ideal, but I could see opening up the class to as many as 16. And it would really just depend on, where we are with signups. And some of the other program leaders have said that if enough of their students sign up, there might be an opportunity to have their program para come with the students if we need that. I am proposing that I would teach the course. So I'm actually a 1.0 coordinator, hopefully, if I get the job permanently with OTL. So it really isn't costing us anything in terms of personnel because, my teaching position is already covered by my job as coordinator. So, another thing that has come to light in how we're looking at inclusion in our classes is we simply need more art classes. Our classes are full and we have nowhere to put more students. So I'm going to need to add some things, and we're working on our existing curriculum and also looking to add some more things that would, new approaches that would pull kids in that we don't already see in our classes.
Thank you.
This sounds great. I really want to just sort of highlight the collaboration and just the thinking across different programs to meet students' needs. I think that's really just so valuable. So we really appreciate that. This sounds fantastic. I look forward to discussing it with the full school committee. Does anyone else have any other questions before we thank Donna once again for coming? All right, this looks good. So we're moving on. Thank you so much, Donna, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at full school committee if you're able to join us then. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Right. Bye.
So we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is high school course updates and previews. And we have up first a physics update from Ed Weiser, who I believe is here on our call to join us. Excellent. There's Mr. Weiser. If you could, welcome, and if you could introduce yourself to the community and tell us about the updates to the physics course, 9th grade.
Hello, everyone. Ed Weiser. I'm the curriculum coordinator for science at the high school. Been here a number of years, and it's my honor to talk about physics. And so this is a little bit more about the entire program, as well as just this update about AP Physics, where there are a lot of nuances to the changes that have happened recently due to the pandemic, and also a lot of the input that the teachers have given, all the caring consideration to the coursework over the many years. So I'm going to share my screen and go with the Google Slides. Hopefully this is showing up in full slide view there. Okay, so here's the update. We're still going to have AP Physics. It's just that the craziness with all of the different combinations of exams are going to be folded into one course. No, geez, oh yeah, here we go. There's the table of contents. You don't need to see that. But hopefully you were able to play around with that when I sent the file. I did make a few typos, corrected those up. But here's the complex picture. With the College Board, there are actually 4 different AP Physics exams. We have 2 different courses, AP Physics C and AP Physics 1 and 2, and they have their respective exams. It's interesting to note that most schools throughout the country actually say they teach AP Physics C, but they only teach the one AP Physics C mechanics exam, whereas our AP Physics C goes through both of those semesters, college semesters, and AP Physics 1 and 2 does the same. AP Physics 1 was supposed to be, if you look at our timeline, which is coming right up, you'll note that it used to be called AP Physics B, and then they split it up into 2 courses. The College Board was hoping that the first course would be a junior course, the second one would be for seniors. And so they've made a lot of changes over the past few years due to the pandemic. So I'm just going to kind of gloss over these and get right to that timeline. So back when we started the 9th grade physics pilot, it was called Accelerated Physics. There are 4 sections of it. It was at the Old Lincoln School campus when we did the renovation on the front part of the building. And then in the 1999 school year, all of the students took physics for the first time. And we teased them and said, hey, there's going to be all sorts of AP Physics opportunities when you become a senior. And that is what happened. I was hoping that we would have many more sections of it, but it worked out pretty darn well in consideration that our whole entire senior offerings seemed to bloom from that point forward. We started a flipped classroom in 2013. 2014, that's when the College Board changed it so that AP Physics B became those 2 courses. And an interesting thing happened where the difference between the courses was highlighted actually a little bit more. And now we're starting to get into a little bit of the problem that we've been encountering. So we've always wanted to have more students of color from the scholars, all of our places to recruit students from, and girls to increase the enrollment. And one thing we did in 2017 was we eliminated the prerequisite of BC calculus. And we had so many more students sign up that we started to see more of the issues play out. And I love this little fun fact. In the 2018 school year over here, there are only 184 female test takers in Massachusetts for the AP Physics C electricity and magnetism exam. So that's a much more esoteric one. We teach it, and Lexington as well. We had 24 of those whole entire 184. So what, 13% of our the whole test takers in the state came from our high school. So while we never really eliminated the gender gap in AP Physics, we have done so much more work than most other places. Pandemic began. We had a total of 4 sections across AP Physics C and 1 and 2, and that's where the teachers started to collaborate much more in order to be able to support each other and just make it to the end of the year. They knew pretty early on that the exams were only going to be 45 minutes long with 2 questions, and they're probably going to be very similar in content, so they really supported each other. Move to today, we have 3 sections of AP Physics taught by 2 different teachers. And they still are noticing that even though we've moved the kids together, that there's definitely, like, the original course process, the course sign-up process was very biased in terms of the way that the kids would still see themselves as math students, not even just, regardless of the fact that we eliminated the prerequisite for BC calculus. So here is an overview of the problem, these 4 points here. Students have misunderstood the difference between the 2 courses for many years because it's complicated. The misunderstanding has allowed internalized bias to pervade systematically within the course selection process, creating an unnecessary barrier for the students to get more of the calculus-based content. Also, there's been an unnecessary an unnecessary homogeneity in the student populations where it's based on math levels. And so, yeah, and AP Physics 1 and 2 is a great course. I taught the AP Physics B course long ago, and it was so much fun being able to do things like fluid mechanics and thermodynamics and a real sense towards the physics applications. So these are the 4 points with a little bit more detail underneath them, where AP Physics C was supposed to be the harder one, and AP 1 and 2 was the easier one. And that just wasn't ever really the case. Statistically, the AP Physics 1 and 2 was actually harder. And we did a lot of messaging trying to dispel the differences. We had a video on our website, and still kids had a hard time figuring it out. And so this point right here, where students really struggled with which one to take because of how they saw themselves as learners. Oh, Google Slides, come on. Then this misunderstanding has led to a homogeneity in the classes, as we've been saying here. So hopefully, if you didn't get a chance to read that before, you can read along there. But I think that the basic idea was that the teachers really tried to figure out long and hard, how could we merge these classes together? What would we need to do in order to be able to accomplish this? And the opportunity of the complete upheaval with the pandemic really led to where we are right now. But also, yeah, the AP Physics 2 was great for the quantum mechanics. And so a lot of kids would still take the AP Physics C because they saw themselves as, well, I should take that one if it's the harder one, even though I want to take the one with the quantum mechanics. So the other interesting point is the College Board has made many switches. The most important one is that the AP Physics 1 exam used to have many more topics than just mechanics, and mechanics being, speed, velocity, acceleration, forces. So the AP Physics 1 exam had fluid dynamics, some circuits, and a little bit of magnetism. They've eliminated that, and so we're just posturing around them as well. So the teachers really figured out how to work hard, how to have the kids work hard by them doing a lot of thoughtful work, and so that they could all get to take the AP Physics C mechanics exam with just a little bit of instruction on the calculus parts. The teachers also figured out ways to get kids to collaborate together, have group quizzes, and also call them retakes, but just try to get to that level of mastery. So students are always iterating for improvement, which is a new thing, especially for an AP level class, where it's traditionally been a bit of sink and swim. So the other thing that you should know, and Hal loves this, is that instead of trying to get kids to be scheduled between AP Physics C or 1 and 2, if it's all one course, it's a lot easier for the students to be scheduled there. And also with help sessions, students can support each other much more effectively if they're only in one course as opposed to split up. Then it gets complicated again. So what exams will the kids take? They can, instead of taking either, these two or these two, students can now choose between the AP Physics C mechanics or the AP Physics 1. They'll all take the AP Physics 2. And if with a little bit of nudging and outside support, students can also take the AP Physics C electricity and magnetism exam. So now they can take a combination and max out at 3 exams instead of just the 2, which was really clever on the part of the teachers to be able to figure that one out. Next steps, we can't wait to move in. We've got all sorts of equipment getting sent over to 22 Tappan. The schedule and the cohorting will be a lot easier for the teachers to deal with. They're going to continue piloting the assessment and grading policies, and we're going to try to just keep moving forward. One of the things that's also lacking, that's really hard to do, is have an alumni survey system. Or trying to think about that in terms of the data squad. I don't know how much you know about that, but traditionally we only have the data of the X2 Aspen system plus the MCAS data and the AP performance and participation. But one of the reasons why we did all of this is because students came back to us and said certain reports about how well they're doing in college, but it's only anecdotal. And so we're going to keep moving forward and try to figure out how to restructure those first few units of AP Physics so that we can make the onboarding a little bit more intentional in terms of the way that students can get shocked by the calculus right off the bat with the mechanics units. So hopefully that gives you a good sense for what that looks like. Here's the last page about the catalog entry. Hopefully you have that. But that's it in a nutshell.
So when Ed came to me at the end of last year, I didn't get the slick presentation. I got like a novel that Ed had written about why this change was a good change. And
it was written by the teachers, not me. They
written by the teachers, yes. I said, this is something that we certainly should advise curriculum subcommittee about. I don't think we're looking for a vote. It really is just apprising you that we're shifting sort of how we are approaching the AP Physics classes because of shifts, as Ed so nicely described, shifts in the test itself and shifts in the way the teachers themselves are approaching how they teach this type of course.
Great, that's a lot of information and a lot of thinking of to make that work for students. And I like the idea of being able to get a more diverse student population in there and really appeal to more people, but also give students the opportunity to sort of make decisions about which of the AP tests that they are interested in when they get there. Especially like that piece about sort of that giving students the opportunity to sort of take an assessment and get feedback on it and grow from it instead of sort of like a one and done, you either got it or you didn't, and allowing for that student growth in the process. Because I know it's a lot of material to cover, and it's great teaching all the time. Do folks have, I know this isn't strictly a new course, so I really appreciate you coming and sharing this information with us so that we can, of course, always inform the community and let them know, let parents know and students know sort of what are the changes and why. I think that's really helpful, but also great for us to know as well. Steve, I see you have a question or comment.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Thank you for that presentation, Ed. I found that really fascinating. I have a question about the process. So you clearly have an equity lens on thinking through how to reorient these courses at BHS. I'm just curious about how, whether this was opportunistic, whether there was a change in the testing protocols that led you to act on an insight you had long had or that others had shared with you, or whether there was something perhaps previous to this process that was more strategic that aimed to identify inequities that courses generated or perpetuated that you then acted on. I want to know more of the backstory, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's why I put the timeline in there and try to go through it as quickly as possible without belaboring it. We've been making shifts all along and always thinking, oh, if we just do this one thing, we'll get a better result. And so that was part of it. And you're right. I mean, it was definitely opportunistic. We're trying to figure out, well, if the College Board is going to keep changing things, and there's this a tension, a love-hate relationship with the College Board and the AP structure and what it's really for and what it should be for. So we just put it all together. And when it came down to it, like, this is the best way that we can reduce the amount of tension between the harder and the easier course when they weren't harder or easier. So it's been a long road. It's been a long road. So I don't know if I'm sufficiently answering you, but it was definitely a part of the opportunity once the College Board changed.
I just appreciated and was struck by how thoughtful you were about the composition of the classes and how certain students were gravitating towards it, perhaps because of internal biases rather than through the more like rational selection of courses for them. So So thanks for all this information and your thoughtfulness about how to be opportunistic towards equity goals.
Great, thank you.
Stephen, can I just hop in on, that's a great question. And I would also just talk about the work Ed's 9th grade physics team has done to really rethink and improve 9th grade physics and experiential physics. And while doing that, thinking about the leveling structures we have now, what we could have in the future. And I think the reality is some of the teachers who are teaching those upper level AP physics courses are also embedded on that 9th grade team. So thinking very much about access and trajectory and the ability to move between courses and have more options. And so Ed does a lot of things well. One of them is to listen really effectively to his team. He happens to also to be an expert physics teacher. So I think there's, you know, this started with Jennifer framing this as a conversation about physics. It's mostly focused on the AP physics suite of courses, but I think it's also been very much impacted by 2.5, 3 years of really superb curricular work. And it won't surprise me if a year from now we come to you to talk to you about 9th grade physics and what that could look like after the terrific work they've done. So great question, Stephen.
Can I, one last comment? Thanks for that. It just in the spirit of coordination, I've been attending the meetings that the Office of Educational Equity has with the Brookline educators that are on educational diversity. And a topic that's come up numerous times is the relationship between leveling and inequity. And when it comes to thinking about alternatives, the conversation tends to slow down. So hearing about a specific process that one department, one group of teachers undertook in that area, I think will be of great interest to others. So this is the kind of story that I'm looking forward to reporting back about.
So you'll also hear Gary tell a story about how global studies came to be in a similar way. But sorry, Gabe, maybe I stole your thunder.
I was going to say, we're going to have like, that's the perfect transition into Gary's preview for us.
So, yep, are there other questions for Ed? Okay.
I'm sorry, Susan was before me. Just a quick technical question. So now there will be just one AP physics course that will be in the book for a year long, culminating in a test if the kids want to take it, right?
Yes. Yep.
Or culminating in 3 different tests.
Yes.
Could be up to 3, yeah.
Which is weird because AP chemistry is only 1 exam. AP environmental science is only 1 exam, but physics was 4 for
and can you get credit in the university for 4 different courses?
They split it up into semesters, and a lot of colleges will take this credit, won't take that one if you did this, and like it's too hard to know when you're in a high school which ones they will and won't, because you don't even know where you're going to go. So it's all very complicated. So now that we're going to streamline it and kids will have the opportunity to take 3, it's win-win-win.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for all your hard work too.
Thanks, good to see you.
Susan?
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you as well. And since we have folks, I mean, the idea of trying to do this on top of the pandemic challenges that everyone's facing right now, but also the changing AP exam landscape and opening 2 new buildings is just tremendous. So just a huge thank you to you, Ed. I've getting emails from you in early morning, late night over the summer, really just trying to do a lot on the high school project and make sure these buildings are great for teachers and kids. So just a huge thank you to you and the teachers as well, who really like turn these spaces into beautiful teaching spaces. And you know, a building is a set of walls, but the amazing work that's happening is just it's so wonderful to see. So just thank you for all of that. I don't really have any questions, only to say that the 2 things that struck me were the percentage of female identifying students who came from Brookline as a percentage of all the students in the state. That was surprising to me. I didn't know that. So it was a 13%, you said, I think?
Of the state, yeah. And that was with 3 sections of AP Physics C, and 2/3 were students who identified as male and 1/3 who identified as female. So it looks on paper like, why are there so many more boys than girls? Like,
yeah.
Well,
And I know it's not going to be comparable because everything's changing up this year, but I just appreciate that information. That was helpful. And then the second thing that struck me was just, kind of not only the ongoing conversation about sort of leveling and sort of how tracking works, both technically, but also just psychologically. I was also just taken by a line in your presentation, which I think said something like there was no meaningful reduction in AP test scores after the BC calculus requirement was removed. And I'm wondering if you could just say a little bit more about that, because I think that what we've heard over the last number of years is, particularly at the middle school level, and we have a whole other process to deal with this, but there's a set of parents who come to us on a regular basis and say they can't wait to get to the high school because high school is leveled, and their kids just aren't getting challenged, fill in the blank. And so I think that some of the moves at the high school level to unlevel have been so thoughtfully done by the educators about how to differentiate and how to make it a really meaningful experience across the board, and what the richness is and what the advantages of heterogeneous classrooms. And sometimes it's a little bit more obvious in like social studies than it might be in science, how an unleveled classroom might work. But I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that one in particular, and if there are any lessons overall that we can take out of either that or anything else about just how we think about even just requirements when we do have, differentiated levels in a sense, like an AP class or something like that. I do remember a presentation a number of years back. There was a nonprofit organization, I can't remember it, which something was like, 500,000 students, around the country are eligible for like AP classes, mostly children of color and low-income kids, but and could be ready to take those classes, but they're just not given opportunity because of things like prerequisites and track. So I'm just wondering if you could talk about that one in particular, what that experience was, and if there's anything we can learn from it.
Yeah, I think so. Going all the way back to when we did the physics first pilot. So this is, in the late 90s, people were concerned because we had a test to get into biology 1 honor in 8th grade. You had to take a test in order to get into bio, and that was the only way you could take an AP science unless you doubled up at some other point. And so people were worried, well, if we get rid of all of these different levels for 9th graders, everything's going to fall apart. And it didn't. Like we had the pilot for physics, only 2 levels, and we've stuck with that ever since. Shortly thereafter, we also removed all of the entrance exams and requirements for AP sciences. And that was before I was a coordinator. And the AP participation went up, and the AP scores, I think they went up a little bit, but they certainly didn't fall down. And we had so many more students involved in that. So I don't know if those little factoids are helpful there, but every single time that we've taken courses with many levels, so chemistry and LBC honor and LBC and chemistry 1 honor, we basically had 4 de facto levels, even though it was whatever, there was a lot of hand waving. As soon as we collapsed those, things were just the same. All the scores were even better, and access was increased. So I think every single time I've seen where we have reduced the number of levels, we've always seen success. And one of the other interesting parts of it is then you get more teachers who can collaborate more. So Gary can talk about this, like it's going to be more and more and more of his team that is getting involved, and then you get greater ideas, and the ideas spread. Because when you have one teacher working in a vacuum, that's the worst.
Good, thank you for that. And just the work that Josh presented, this work, I know Gary's going to talk about. Gary, you've been talking about this for a long time. I really appreciate this, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for coming. I don't see any other questions, but I do have to say, I feel badly now that I referenced physics and then said 9th grade, and it's because I have a 9th grader. And so when I hear physics, that's what I think of. So sorry, but the focus is on AP in our 11th and 12th grade classes. So that's I got to own that. And so thank you so much, Ed, for coming. We really appreciate it. And I don't see any other questions at this time. So we appreciate the update. And I'm sorry that we are a little bit behind, but we're having such great information and great questions. So Gary is here to talk about 10th grade social studies or global studies. And so I understand you're presenting next, Gary. Would you like to introduce yourselves to everyone? I think we can't hear you. Thank you.
I'm on mute now to make my presentation somewhat more engaging. I'm Gary Schiffman, head of the Social Studies Department. Nice to see you all, and thank you for inviting me to join you. I am going to share my screen and tell you a story about global studies and a pilot we'd like to conduct next year. So let's see if I can figure out how to do this. All right. I'm now opening my security. Oh my God, honestly.
Well, we'll tell, while Gary is doing this, I'm going to distract everyone to say that Gary was on leave last year, and so he didn't have the pleasure of instruction with Zoom. And so this is a experience in empathy for him. We're watching him.
Welcome back, Gary.
Right.
So I have to grant access in my security, something or other. All right, allow, okay.
Gary, an option is you could share the deck with myself or someone else, and then we can move
I'm going to
slides.
share. So Gabe is going to be my digital amanuensis. He's going to display my slides, and they'll be better dressed as a result. But hold on, let me do this. All right, great. Thank you, Gabe. And I'll cue you to advance the slide. So the presentation will now be better dressed and less sarcastic. So 3 years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, time's hazy and pandemic, I came, Helen, you were certainly here.
So was Susan.
And, yeah.
So was Jennifer.
Suzanne, who else? I don't know. Susan, I think you were in the room as well.
Yeah, and Jennifer.
Jennifer, yes, and Jennifer was in the room. Stephen, I don't think you were on that version of the panel. And Leslie, I think you were principal at Pierce. Anyway, and Gabe was a social studies coordinator. Anyway, I'm harking back to the old days when I came to the school committee to talk about an unleveled social studies course we now call WISP, World History, Identity, Status, and Power. That's it. So that pilot, that's not a pilot, that's a course. Our ninth graders are now taught in a heterogeneous environment. Everybody comes to the high school, they take social studies, and the social studies course they take is called WISP. And we're going to get real data on that course. The course began running in 2019, 2020. So in March of that year, we all went home and started teaching in Zoom. And so the first year of the course didn't end as we had hoped. Last year, as you know, was compromised in various ways. This year is complicated. Nonetheless, we're 3 years up and running, into our third year up and running with WISP. And the argument for that class is also the argument for the course I'm about to present to you, which we would like to run as a pilot in the fall. So I'm going to show you a picture just so you can get the lay of the land. Oh, I can't do that. Gabe, can you advance to the next slide? This is what social studies required courses look like right now. You come to the high school and other departments level, not the elective departments, the other major academic departments level. In social studies, you take ninth grade world history, identity, status, power. Some of those sections are co-taught, but all students have the same teacher, they're in the same room. And this was a response to data we looked at. We spent a long time, 2 years, looking at data and then planning this course. And we noticed that students in social studies, if they started in standard, tended to stay in standard. And if a one cohort we studied, if you were a Black boy and you started in standard, you never left the standard level. And we were concerned about data like that, about results like that. And we also thought, as a social studies department, we want all the kids in the room to talk about how the world around them works in ninth grade. And we don't like the idea of welcoming them to the high school with a badge before we've even met them. So our plan was to offer the ninth grade course we currently offer, and then to reconceive and reconfigure our level system going forward. So here's where we are now. Ninth grade on level, 10th grade, we have two levels. 10th grade standard, 10th grade honors, modern world history. And if you look over at the right, you see US history, we offer 4 varieties. And if you break American studies into standard honors, it's 5, but there are 4 classrooms you can sit in. You can take 11th grade standard US history. You can take 11th grade American studies, which is mixed level. You can take that for standard or honors credit in the same room. You can take 11th grade honors US history or 11th grade AP US history. Lots of choices for students. I should say I'm not committed to that indefinitely, but for now it gives kids a lot of options. We don't like the middle. And we don't like the middle for the 10th grade assortment for a variety of reasons. The two-level model I have seen, at least in social studies, and I would argue in English, they have the same kind of problem. Students choose with advice from lots of adults around them, but they choose what level to take. And honors becomes a default for students who identify with groups of friends who are often determined by social class. In other words, it becomes a social grouping. Students identify themselves as honor students because their friends are honor students and those are the courses they take. And what we get is 2/3, or actually close to 70% of students enroll in honors and about 30% enroll in standard. And that does not track any meaningful difference in academic ability or prerequisite knowledge or anything meritorious that we know about. It doesn't make sense to us. And the students, we teach who we get in the room always, and we differentiate no matter who's there, and we acknowledge human difference no matter who's in the room with us. But the two-level system is a hazard. We saw that in 9th grade, and now we continue to do it in the 10th grade. So Gabe, press the button, and I'll show you what we would like to do. We'd like to do that. We'd like to make the social studies required curriculum look more like welcome to the high school. We're going to learn about the human world, and we're going to learn about ourselves as learners and collaborators. And then what we have to offer you next year, 9th graders, is 3 options, at least for now. One is traditional 10th grade modern world history standard. One is our traditional 10th grade modern world history honors. But what we'd like eventually is for the majority of students, and possibly the vast majority of students, to take something else called global studies, which is, I'm going to describe it in the next couple of slides, but the short version is, it's a course that would be offered at 2 levels. You could take it and earn global studies credit and a grade, or you could take it and earn honors and get your grade and an honors designation at the end, but you would be in the room with other Brookline High School students, many other students. The presumption is heterogeneity. The presumption is that we're to look a lot like your WISP class, actually, both in the way it's run and the feel of the room because of who's in it. The 10th grade global studies would prepare students for US history standard. American studies would prepare them extremely well. It would prepare them for US history honors, and it had better prepare them for AP US history because we expect that course to offer students the preparation they need for that course as well. So, Gabe, next slide. Here's what we're thinking the global studies course will look like. Organically, teachers in my department, the WISP course it's rooted in content, of course. We have to teach about the human world. You can't intuit it. We have to tell people stories about the past before they know them. But the units are all designed to raise probing and provocative questions that kids can think about. In that sense, they're all thematic. We want that to be built into the model for global studies. Organically, teachers have been experimenting both in 10th and 11th grade in modern world history and US history with thematic units, in part to solve the perennial history problem, which is that history is piling up all the time. One of my colleagues likes to joke, when he got here, there was a course called Contemporary US, which focused on Nixon and Watergate and the Vietnam War, and like, that's not contemporary. Helen and I think it's contemporary. It's not contemporary, it's history. And so you have to revise all the time. And the fact is we're always behind in doing that. Getting to Reagan feels hard. Reagan is half a century ago, right? So what teachers figure out is if you build thematic units, what you start to do is, if you do a long civil rights movement, you start with you may start with David Walker, but you end up with Black Lives Matter. And you cover a lot of territory, and it presents challenges. You have to explain to kids how the timeline works, what's happening at the same time, what's happening at different times. But the reality is you can, in a thematic-based course, you can get to the present and teach the past as a precursor to the present in a way that is illuminating of that past for students. And that leads to the second distinctive feature of a course like this, which is personal connections. You start to see, oh, that old stuff actually is interesting, because it's partly where the things I care about started to happen. It's where people were doing things that are similar to and different from what I'm doing and thinking about doing and so on. Third thing, projects and collaboration. This is central to the WISP mission. We always thought that part of making heterogeneous learning work well is similar to the complex instruction that Josh talked about. It's the same fundamental concept, different set of authors, but the idea is when you collaborate, you realize the need for other people, and that involves having complex projects that you really couldn't do yourself. You certainly couldn't do it well, and you wouldn't like it very much. So we want projects that require students to collaborate and contribute and see that everyone has something to offer. And then finally, this just came up as well, we want a course like this to be collaboratively planned. We want the teachers to do what the students do, that is work together and achieve things they couldn't achieve on their own. We're doing that in WISP. We're about to give a common mid-year on Thursday that we wrote together, took many meetings. You know, socialism, democracy, and WISP planning take many, many evenings, but the reality is the product is better. And we're asking students to do that in the classroom. So anyway, we're carrying over a lot of what we've learned in practice in WISP, and we want to make that, we want to build that into the DNA and design of our global studies class. Gabe, one more. So here's what we are proposing to do with this global studies class, which will make our 10th grade offerings richer and better for our students. This spring, with an enormous debt of gratitude to Leslie and to Gabe for their support in our planning for this course this spring. We have financial support to have a team. I have a team of 2 pilot teachers and 4 advisors. They're like a board of directors, and they will eventually be teachers of this course when it's up and running, and I will participate as well. And that team will plan the structure and assessments for the course. This summer, we'll need some support to do some more detailed curriculum planning, and then many thanks to Gabe and Anthony for support for the pilot next year, when we will have some release for students for teachers from their +1 assignments to work on planning this course as they teach it, which, as we've learned in the WISP model, is absolutely essential to getting a complex project-based course off the ground. A note about earned honors, or the kind of honors we're talking about here. So we're still in the very preliminary stages. The first official meeting of the planning team for global studies. Actually, no, Gabe, you can kill the slideshow. The first meeting for the planning team is a week from Monday, and the first topic is earned honors. I've been talking a lot to John Andrews, chair of the English department. He is interested in piloting an earned honors model in one of their mixed level 10th grade courses, Future World Lit. I'll tell you briefly what we're thinking now. This is very much concept in progress. Traditionally, students sign up for an honors or a standard class, and there is no way to make it not feel like identification. The fact is, you're buying a ticket, and you buy the premium ticket or the not premium ticket or something like that. It feels like that. There's another way to do it. The legitimate reason to differentiate work and acknowledge the differentiation, that is, categorize it and put it on a transcript, is that it is substantially different, and not all kids are ready to do all that work at the same time. We have grade levels. I mean, you're not ready for 11th grade if you're in 10th grade. Like, we label things that way. And, advanced algebra is harder than not advanced algebra, whatever. So we are not ready to de-level the 10th grade entirely, and we believe there is merit in acknowledging advanced work in a topic. However, we want to see it in performance, and we want to support all students to attempt that performance to the degree they're able. And we don't want to judge it in advance. We don't want honors to be just something you sign up for because your friends are signing up for it. So we're exploring a model in which the assessments would all be designed in advance. It's a lot of pre-planning. The model, so for every quarter, say, there would be 4 substantial assessments, just using the number 4 for illustrative purposes. And you have 4 quarters, 4 substantive assignments, assessments for each quarter. Each of them would come in 2 varieties, 1 advanced and 1 par, 1 par, 1 advanced. And if you completed a sufficient number of those, a sufficient number of times over the quarters, 75%, 80%, whatever the number is that we have to arrive at, if you did those and you were supported to do that and trained to do it and encouraged to do it, potentially all students would earn the honors, maybe not, but they'd have to earn it. And at the end of the year, they'd earn the designation honors or not, based on their performance rather than on their chosen label. So it's a way to think about leveling that is much more, it's less categorical. It encourages, we hope, less social placement, less fudging, both on the part of teachers and students, and much clearer. I mean, if you do it right, I think it encourages much clearer assessment, creation and rubric and assessment of assessments, because you really have to be clear about what makes this an honors assignment and what makes this not an honors assignment. In part, this is a response to the fact we have mixed level classes. We have many of them. More than half of the senior options classes in social studies are mixed level. English has 2 mixed level classes in 10th grade. Our American Studies class is mixed level. Those are subscription model. You sign up. And in all of them, we see some blurring. And it's never clear enough for my purposes or for my preferences, how we define honors and standard. If we go to an earned honors model, which I believe we will have to be much clearer than we've been. And again, if everyone ends up with honors, that is a raving success. And if not, that's fine. If what we've given students is assessment and preparation for assessment with integrity at whatever level they're at when they encounter those assessments. So the idea is 2 teachers, 4 sections, 2 teachers doing 2 sections each. So about 100 kids will take global studies next year, and we'll see who earns honors by the end of the year. They will take a thematic class, project-based, collaborative, teachers collaborating. They will have a board of directors, which will get ready to jump into the class as we expand it. And I think it's exciting. The team of teachers who have signed up to work on this are extremely excited about it. And it is, I don't know if you remember the details, but when I came and talked about WISP years ago, I said, this is coming. This is what comes next. Because if we leave the 2-level thing in place, we will always have that same problem of, I'm in honors because my friends are in honors. There's obviously a much bigger Stephen referred to it before. There's a bigger conversation here about the place of levels overall, and there's even a place for, by subject matter. There's a bigger conversation here. One thing at a time is the only way we can operate in the world. I'm not sure that the chart I showed you with 1 course, then 3 courses, then 4 courses is where I want to leave social studies when I'm done with it. But there's much more to say beyond that. But I think this is for sure a step in the right direction. So, questions, please.
I have one sort of small, this is great. And I really enjoyed the conversations that we had around 9th grade WISP previously. And this is very much in the same conversation. The technical question I had is, how will students sort of get into engage with the pilot? How will they registration? How does that work? Do students elect in? Is it sort of, what do we envision that looking like?
Yes, that is the topic of our meeting on Friday morning for the WISP team. So we always advise students, right? We sit down, we pull them out one by one in the class, we look over their work and ask them how they like this class and what they're thinking and so on. Ask them what else they're interested in taking, get a sense of their schedules. We do a little counseling. And, in the past, that was always, so we're talking about honors and standard, those are options. So now we'll have a 3rd option and we'll present it to a lot of kids, but we're going to try to recruit about 100 students who are heterogeneous. We don't want it to look like the population of our traditional honors or standard classes. We want it to look like the population of our most heterogeneous classes. We're a little lumpy now because of the cohorting. We have high and low sections. We need to stop that. We need to fix that. But the sections in WISP that really look heterogeneous, we want global studies to look like that. And so we will be deliberate about making sure within each section, I have a range of interests and current ability in the central skills and social studies in my class. I'm going to try to get a diverse bunch of kids from my class to commit to this. And there's a little bit of a process of, we'll probably over-recruit and then tell some kids, you may not get it, but it's just a pilot. This can be terrible anyway. And then the ones who get in, we'll tell them it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. And they're so lucky to be in it. But we want heterogeneous groups. That's number one. And we'll manage it.
Okay, and, okay, so we'll be, all right, so there'll be some options, and just as we advise students every year and talk to them, it'd be similar to that process. And I just wanted to sort of go back to what you mentioned about WISP and the cohort. So when we move to the new building and we're there, that will alleviate that issue, correct? Hopefully,
Well,
yes.
So our sections are, this year, our sections are our sections. And cohorting, I mean, I was a skeptic, Anthony knows, I was a skeptic about all this. And, of course, I still ride my bike down Route 9, so I will probably be the casualty, but we've gotten out without casualties. But
One more day.
What?
One more day of travel.
So,
Knock wood, knock wood.
one more day.
Yeah, knock wood.
So, but the reality is what cohorting meant was our sections are really not heterogeneous. We have Blue got the special ed sections, and I have a block that looks like advanced geometry. So this year is, this is what we have this year. Next year in Jerusalem at 22 Tappan Street, we need to have classes that look more like what we designed them for.
That's great to hear.
So to answer your question directly, Jennifer, yes, once we're no longer doing the cohorting, for any number of reasons, Gary mentioned one, there's several different scheduling reasons that cause kids to sort of cluster around certain choices that they would have made or courses that they would have been in. And that goes away when we no longer have to put kids either in the red or the blue cohort.
That's good. That's good to hear. I'm glad. I'm not sure who had their little imaginary hand up. So, Stephen is gesturing to Helen. Helen gesturing to Steve. Helen, go first, and we'll take Steve.
Actually, Stephen was first. He had his hand up first. Okay, I'll go first. Hi, Gary, and welcome back again.
Thank you.
And thank you for this. It's really fascinating. I think back to from the time I started on the school committee till today, and how I think the one area that has changed the most is social studies. But it's almost a little bit too much like Back to the Future, where when my oldest was in school, we had ancient traditions. We, as a ninth grade course, we had the world in conflict. We had
legal studies. Was that legal studies? Or was that
no? The world in conflict was about the Vietnam War, the Arab-Israeli conflict, and the one other one. What else was going on at that time? Ireland, right. And the Irish conflict. And I can see this course sort of moving a little bit in that direction. And what was a problem then, and I'm hoping it wouldn't be now, was kids had no background, no understanding of the history from before to be able to then understand these conflicts in a more complex way.
Yep.
than what the media might have told them, or what they were reading, without knowing for all three of them, the background goes back years. It's not just centuries rather for some. So anyway, I just that would be my only concern, that kids there may not be a broad enough world history part of the global studies. And that's what you guys have to figure out, and how you put it together. But
yeah, this is not, I'm familiar with World in Conflict, and Rothstein's book on the culture wars in Brookline, you can read about it. No, we're not doing that. We're definitely not doing that.
Okay.
We're only doing the Arab-Israeli conflict. That's the whole year. So
wait a minute.
It's a public meeting. I'll cut that out. No, it's a modern world history class. WISP is a pre-modern world history class. We didn't throw out the old stuff. we reconfigured the old stuff to try to make it more interesting and engaging for students. So the experiments that have been going on here, it's not a contemporary history course. It's not a topics course. So the way people have been experimenting with this here is you always start with political history because that is the spine. There's always something about power and government to start with. And you may talk about, struggles to govern or something like that. American studies. American studies does a lot of history. They do a lot of the American past. I use the example of civil rights. When you study civil rights, you literally start with the founding. You start with, the slave petition to the Massachusetts legislature, right? At the time of the Revolution, 1777. You tell the story of America. It's not that we just do the news. You can't do the news with people who don't know anything.
Right.
But you can change the way you teach. Like, it's all the same stuff. It's whether you divide it into thematic strands. You say, let's talk about, in the world, sometimes they'll do revolution. And you have to know enough about the government that's being revolted against, right? And you do a series of revolutions. Like, okay, so we have a sense of politics and how people have struggled change over time. Now let's go back. Now let's talk about economics. How did people earn their daily bread, and how did that influence that? Now let's go back and talk about culture. So there are ways to do it that are not contemporary topics classes, but rather taking the material you want any kid to know about the modern world. They need to know about the eras of modern history to make any sense of how today is different, right? What makes this contemporary, right? And of course, different things come into focus in different ways. Immigration, with the election of Trump in 2016, immigration became a very central topic in US history, people doing immigration thematic units. But you don't just do contemporary, right? You do the story. This is not building conflict. I know what you're worried about. I'm worried about it too. Superficiality. We are knowledge first people. It's not just skills. It's not just what do you think about things. That's not where we're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gary, and I would just add, it's not the team you've selected to lead the endeavor. I think that both Kristen Murphy and Mike Norman have been at Brookline High School for at least, 18 years and 14 years respectively. And they have taught world history at the 10th grade level. Mike is teaching 9th grade this year. They've both taught US AP. So I do think there is a real commitment on the part of the team, the planning team, around curriculum.
Great.
Thanks for the question,
Thank
Helen.
you.
Just to clarify, I think I understand this correctly, but the content is essentially the same. It's the skills and sort of the pedagogy and the way that students will interact with that material that is different in the pilot. Just for community members who may be watching and looking for some clarification about the pilot and whether or not their student may or may not be in that. The content is the same, and students will all be prepared for those 11th grade classes for entry in that. Am I understanding?
The latter for sure. They better be prepared because we offer those we're the same people. We're expecting them on the other end. It'd be a mean trick on ourselves if we didn't prepare them. Some of the specific content will change. So what happens to history teachers? You're teaching the French Revolution, and by God, it's fascinating. And now you're teaching it for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and now you're never going to get past the Cold War. And that is, the traditional narrative sequence, which has great merit. You get to see the world change over time. You get to mix all your themes at the same time. You don't get confused about the timeline. It's all great, but it is a hazard in my field because you get bogged down. And you know that you're spending too long, but it's so hard to break it. And you've done it for so long, by the way. And so you always get to the end, you're like, oh my God, and then all this stuff happened, now you gotta go. And you rebuild it. And this is why organically, as I said, teachers have been doing this because kids wanna know, how did that get, great. So they had an immigration, but the know-nothings were an anti-immigrant party. Well, but what about our anti-immigrant party? Yeah, we'll get to that later. No, we're gonna get to it now. So you do cut out some material. Instead of 4 weeks on the French Revolution, your revolutions unit is more comparative. You learn about the French and how the world was different then, but you also will study the Russian, Chinese, and the Iranian, and you'll get a sense of that timeline So the details of the French Revolution, you'll get less of it, but on purpose, because we want less of it, because we want Iran, right? Because they need to know about the Ayatollah and how it transformed the Middle East. That's important. So
Sorry,
it's
Stephen.
still world history. They still get world history.
Yes, that's good. Okay, that answers, that clarifies for me. Stephen, did you have a question? I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Actually, your question was really helpful to me, Jennifer. First, I just want to say just to you, Jen and Leslie, thanks for putting this agenda together. I'm new to the school committee, for those who don't know, and I just feel like it's like a privilege to sit in on these presentations and just get to ask questions afterwards. So I've been trying to read through the scholarly literature on detracking and equity, and it seems like a pretty contested literature, and I'm not going to like find the best practices and then start advocating for them. It's clearly more complicated than that. And I don't know the politics of detracking in Brookline and what the support for and against are, but I'm really interested in pragmatic approaches like yours that look to introduce gradual changes with a real equity objective. I just have a couple of mechanical questions, and Jen, you answered one for me just now. One is you stressed that presenting options to students on whether to take standards, honors, or AP is really just a sort of it's a social grouping exercise. But if I understood, you're also offering choices on assignments in the standards / history, the honors class. Why offer separate, and this is, I'm asking out of interest, why offer separate sets of assignments rather than have like pass, high pass, and high pass is the equivalent to honors? Like what's the pedagogical or learning rationale behind the separate sets of exercises?
I have no problem renaming. So Josh's standard classes aren't called standard, they're called college prep in math. I mean, we can change the names. The great innovators in language are teenagers. They are way ahead of us on all this.
No. I mean, but let's say you completed a unit on the French Revolution. My understanding from your presentation is that you then offer a pair of assignments. One is the standard assignment, one is the honors assignment, and then the student would have the choice of what they would like to complete.
That's right.
Why instead not offer one assignment, and that honors would be awarded to the students who do the work and demonstrate the potential to reach that honors level? Because and I'm asking this because I'm wondering if the logic of introducing another choice will just create another sorting mechanism for the less confident students in the class.
So if you're describing an honors class, or you're describing, if you get an A, we also give you a sticker. So you're describing a grade, right? If we have one assignment, then everyone gets a grade.
Right.
And if you do really well, you get an A. If you do pretty well, you get a B, and so on. That's what we do. But that's an honors class. And by the way, another possibility is there is an equilibrium at honors for everyone. Cambridge did this. Cambridge de-leveled, and they just decided we're just going to call it honors for everyone. There's a school within a school. We have a little smaller learning community here where everybody gets honors. They just say it. We're not ready to do that yet. And there are students, it works both ways. There are students who will not take an honors class because that sounds too hard for them. We say it's honors.
That question clearly. Let's say you take the standards / honors class.
Yeah.
Why not instead offer one assignment? And if you get a grade above a 90, you get an honors in the class. And if you grade below, you've taken it as a standard class. I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding. This is really just from my own understanding.
I'm going to jump in a little bit because I think this is precisely what Gary was talking about. When the team and the planning work they're going to do this spring is going to help define what makes it honors. Like the classic dilemma is honors just more work, right? Is it one more book in an English class? Is it 2 more pages on a paper? That's
work and performance.
Right, it's not terribly meaningful. And so part of why, as OTL, we funded the planning work that Gary was talking about earlier, is so they can help tease out the specifics of what makes it honors. And so a little bit how like this is a pilot, and this is why in my conversations with Gary he wants to do a pilot, is to be able to figure some of this out because these things are poorly defined or inconsistently defined beyond Brookline. And so that, I think, like your question is really deep and really important, and we're already almost half an hour over our scheduled time. And I don't think it's answerable because the group hasn't done the work yet.
Okay, thank you.
But as a practical, Gabe, permit me to say just this. The reason why that is a non-starter in an actual classroom is because then getting the A becomes a political negotiation between the child and that child's family and the teacher. If you get not only an A for an A, but you also get an honors for an A in Brookline, wow, you'll be getting the emails on that one. But Stephen, I'd love to, I mean, I've read a lot of it. We spent a summer reading this literature with the WISP team when we started this project. With Kathy Fisher-Mueller at now Ridley, then Devotion, Jeff Tagnell, who's Gabe's predecessor. Like, we spent a lot of time with this stuff, and it is controversial. The level, you know, the density of the decision-making on the part of students around levels, you have to get into the weeds. The A is hard enough. If we give a sticker, it's going to be, but there's a lot but to Gabe's point, there's a lot to consider. I've been gaming it out. I have an econ teacher. I've asked him to model a unit in his econ class in the spring. I want them to do a strategic game on whether they go for the A in standard or they do the honors, and at what point they break and say, well, that's too hard. I'd rather get my A in standard than a B+ in honors, because I need the experimental data.
This is exactly why the leveling conversation is really intense.
It's really, we're gonna have it sometime, but you know, after Zoom at Hamilton's, OTL will pick up the drinks, I'm sure.
And as we pointed out, we are quite a bit over, so I apologize to everyone. I'm really enjoying the conversation. I see Susan has her hand up, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time as much as is possible. With this tends to happen with us. So Susan, did you have a comment?
It's very quick, but at some point, if we do this again at school committee, I think it would be great to hear what we've heard from you in the past, Gary, which are really specific examples of how some of the heterogeneous classrooms make it a better conversation for everyone. I think you've spoken eloquently about that in the past. And I think those really specific examples of here's how the teaching is better for everyone. The conversation is richer for everyone. I think those are always helpful examples to refresh if we're going to do this at full committee. So
Gabe, I want to just give a plug. Gabe has been enormously helpful in this process. And he and Aaron Cooley met with me, and they are going to meet with the WISP team, because one of the things we promised back before pandemic was we'd actually figure out what we're accomplishing. And there are many dimensions to that, many. And I have anecdotes about what it's like to be in the room, which are great, but we're going to do better than that. We're going to look at student work. We're going to survey faculty and students about a range of issues, and we're going to collect that data and make it manageable and presentable. So, and Gabe and I were texting at the beginning of the meeting, trying to figure out the time he's going to come to the WISP meeting, but we're going to get data, and I would love to come back and present that to you, Susan.
That would be fantastic.
You could get some of the kids from the data science to do the project.
Ooh, that's free labor. We love that. Yeah. Interns. America runs on interns. Yeah.
We're gonna start with Aaron's expertise.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gary, for coming. I really appreciate it. This was really, really interesting, and I think going to increase our conversation around these kind of topics as we go forward. So that's great.
And Jen, if I could just jump in, I definitely want to thank the high school team. And I just want to say, you know, the thing that I'm most pleased with is the level of intentionality that this group is moving with. Because there's a lot of pressure around the de-leveling and leveling. And so, you know, this is a adaptive challenge, if there ever was one. And so getting feedback from people, you know, hearing from various constituents, and just, again, moving with intentionality is really key. And this group is doing that and moving the work. And so I'm just really thankful for the BHS crew.
Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate that. And your support throughout this.
Excuse me, Jennifer, do you want to take a quick vote on recommending the 2 course changes to the full school committee?
Is that permissible under our agenda as listed? That was my next question out of my mouth.
Yes, I think you can do that.
Okay, so I would like to, well, unless the subcommittee members feel otherwise, I would be interested in making one motion to approve both courses, to recommend that the subcommittee recommends them to the full committee. So I will make that motion to recommend both courses.
Second.
Susan seconds, so we'll do roll call vote, seeing, is there any discussion or dissension about that? Okay, Stephen,
Yes.
Helen,
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So I look forward to having, hearing more about this at the full school committee meeting. So I'm very excited about both courses. Suzanne, can I ask you, and maybe Robin can tell me, I have previewed, I think I have an agenda for the full school committee meeting. Are we doing the 2 courses and are we also presenting on the updates and previews? Or did we only put on the agenda the 2 course approvals that would require, like that we typically request a school committee vote for?
The 2 courses.
Okay, all right. So I just wanted to make sure that district staff knew.
Yeah.
what-
Robin, how much time did we allot for that?
I think it was 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it would be a summary of tonight's presentations.
So if Gabe and Leslie, or Hal, Anthony could just coordinate with the presenters for that so they know what to expect for timeline. This is a little bit more in-depth conversation.
It may also be worth signaling to the rest of the committee, because we have 5 of us here, but just to the other 4 people, that they can watch, if they're interested, there's a 2-hour video they can watch in advance and come prepared with questions, just so they don't feel shortchanged, because some people might want to do that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Robin, could you send that out to the school committee members? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Because there's a lot of really great information here that I think people will want to know and understand. I'm sorry, Helen?
So is this going to change the subject, but with the high school people? So I don't want them to leave.
Oh, so yes. Okay. You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. So every year when we do these approvals, we also ask, what are you taking away? What aren't you going to be teaching? Because, there's a limit, first of all, with the number of bodies you have, but also with the number of staff have we taken out any of the high school classes from the course catalog, or do we plan to?
Helen, it's a great question. I think and Hal and I are going to answer it at the same exact time. I think some of the courses, so every 10th grader needs to take a world history. So they'd be either taking world history standard or honors. So it is just a new way with the same ratio of staff to students. Similarly in math, I think we will lose one of the senior electives as part of establishing data science. We're also, given that we're looking at innovation funding, it gives us a couple of years to pilot and play around with the courses and figure out which kids are drawn to it, how we can better support the co-teaching model. As Donna said, the FTE around visual arts is baked into her position, and it will just be the course that she teaches, as almost all coordinators do. Hal, other thoughts on that?
Yeah, it should be pretty neutral for all of these. The math course you might look at as an added course, but the reality is we need to be offering more math courses in the senior year and a greater variety. So it might take away from one of the calculus courses, possibly, but it probably will end up costing us a little bit in FTE over the long run as that course takes off. And it's something that we need to do, because we need to increase the number of offerings that we have at that level for seniors. So,
okay.
Yeah. And the art class should be very neutral for a couple of reasons. Plus it'll, if the numbers get large for that one, we have a lot of diverse art offerings. And again, and I know I've mentioned it to this group, maybe it was to finance at some point, I could easily employ additional art teachers and fill classes in that building. The requests are large in that area. And Ed's classing also would be neutral.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to acknowledge that Anthony and I have to jump to the Innovation Fund.
Oh, good. That was my other question, is when do you anticipate a response from Innovation Fund? I know they're still hearing presentations, but within a week or 2, hopefully?
It may be as much as 3 weeks. We'll see. Our next program committee is February 8th. We're worried that might be a little later than we'd like. So we need to look at the week of 131. It happens to be that Tuesday is Lunar New Year. So we'll see whether that's a possibility, but we'll hear the second set of presentations tonight. give feedback on them internally, but I don't want to hurry our ranking. I sort of want people to sleep on the courses and then come back and hopefully make decisions. And by then the Innovation Fund should have figured out its budget and finance for next year. So the latest would be 2/8, I think, and I would hope it would be the weekend of the 31st. Just quickly, while I have the floor, I just want to shout back out to Leslie and Gabe for the excellent leadership they've provided and support of the high school. I think for people who've been on the school committee for a long time, there is a history of the high school having a moat built around it and it being very hard to access for district leaders. And I think Michelle is on this call and she ran OTL solo last year and was in the high school and all the K-8s. I'm really appreciative of the collaboration between district leaders and the high school. Sadly, we don't get to see you all as much. And I think that is just a show of faith. We really feel well supported and well understood and a really nice type of curiosity about the work happening in the high school and how the Office of Teaching and Learning in the district more largely can support that. So just a lot of great gratitude towards our OTL team and to all of you as district leaders for supporting old BHS. Now I'm going to go show up late to a meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, go. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming. That's wonderful. All right, so I think, thank you so much, Hal, for coming and for joining us. Please feel free to go. It's been a long time. So Leslie, just sort of on the fly here, you're next up on our agenda. We are a full, I think 35 or so, 30 minutes over already. So my recommendation, I think, would be to table our conversation and our update unless there are specific issues that you really want to make sure that you update the committee on, just because we are so far over time, but I don't want us to lose the opportunity to share with the subcommittee any really pressing issues, since it would be another few weeks before we meet again.
I don't think there's anything here that's time sensitive. And also, I think our next subcommittee meeting is bumped up a week because I had jury duty on the 14th. So I feel more comfortable given that we're going to meet a little bit earlier.
Yes, I had
all these updates over to, I think it's the 9th.
Yes, we're actually, so that's great. And I'd like to put that in as part of our meeting. We have adjusted our February meeting so that everyone can be here, and it has officially been rescheduled for a Wednesday. Typically we meet on a Tuesday. It's been rescheduled for Wednesday, February 9th at the same time at 4 o'clock. So for members of the community who might want to join us then, but that's a great point. This is actually only a few weeks until our next meeting instead of a full month. And we did not reschedule for after the week of the 14th due to February break. So we went early. So that's great.
I will, you know what, Jen, I will say there is one, this was not really an update, but more of just something I wanted to flag and share with the school committee was just around the progress or maybe lack thereof around the ECS discussion. And I really wanted to use the subcommittee to really get some questions out there in terms of what your thinking is around ECS, what you're hoping to see, what some of our thinking is. So just to let you know, that would be an agenda item, I'm hoping, for the 9th, because I think that is something we should have a collaborative conversation about.
And Jen, Leslie, as the ECS liaison, I'm happy to join one or both of you to try to help plan that out, just to kind of channel prior year's conversations, if I can be helpful.
That would be great.
That's great. So when we meet to discuss the agenda, we can, I put that on our list of topics that we need to address, Leslie. So that'll be great.
Well, will it be coming up at the next meeting? Is that what you're saying?
I think that Leslie's suggesting that
Yeah.
she would like to engage in some sort of discussion at the February meeting. And then we just need to look at what other pressing issues we need to cover in February, if there are any sort of timelines that we need to meet for other topics. So yes, as I suspect, right now we don't have anything earmarked for that time. So we will put that on there.
Yeah, one thing we normally do around this time is the superintendent's budget comes out, and typically there are curricular changes in there, either more important strategic shifts or even just kind of minor shifts in allocations. And given our enrollment situation and fluctuations, and given just a whole lot of moving parts at the high school, I think it'd be just maybe helpful to look at, not quite a budget review, but just look at the budget for the big moving parts that have a curricular impact, and maybe we can kind of go through those.
I think that as we
Just
go
to
through
remind-
the budget season, that makes, having this discussion soon is a good point. We also have, Casey No Miller brought up at the end of our last meeting under new business, a discussion about understanding our differences.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that is the one thing that I have on my mind for February as well. So we just need, I don't know, we need to make it set it ahead of time that it's going to be a 2-hour meeting, because
Mhm.
we seem to keep going over, and this is the budget season. We've got a lot to cover. So whether or not that's more frequent meetings or long, slightly longer meetings, Leslie, when we meet to discuss that, we can look at what we need to cover and what time we need to carve out for that.
Sounds good.
If I could just say that we're expecting to meet February 10th as a school committee for the sole purpose of passing a budget or voting on that number. So just to give you some time reference for that.
Okay. Is there any other items that people would like to, I believe we have new business on the agenda. So is there any other items that people would like to sort of toss onto the list? I mean, and I would also, I guess long-term, I would like us to continue in the vein of the science conversation that we had, where we had some curriculum presentations. And so love to hear more about the math review. And of course, there's a lot of things in the Office of Teaching and Learning Goals updates that covers a lot of things like middle school review and work that's in progress. So we'll try to, also do sort of that update, but the longer presentations, like we had one on science, I'd love to see us be able to have some more of those in content areas as the spring goes on. So I'll put that on as my business.
Can I just say, I think, the OTL roadmap that was presented earlier and the progress on it is for me, great for agenda setting, but I can continue to be interested in an OTL analysis of time on learning and how minutes have been allocated historically and whether further changes might be advisable. So if that's of interest to other subcommittee members, I would love to see that on a docket at a future subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, we've got a sort of an ongoing list now. I think we've covered several months of.
Yeah, I
meetings.
believe that was on the
Language
original. That was on the original OTL list, but I don't think it was one of the most urgent priorities. I'm just putting in another vote for an update on that or an announcement.
Sounds good.
Great. All right, we are well past time. I appreciate the patience of everyone and the enthusiasm for the conversation. So thank you so much. I believe we are now adjourned. Have a
Thank
lovely
you.
evening, everyone.
Good
Thank you so
meeting.
much.
Thanks, everyone.